Robservations with Robert, Meyer, Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I am Robcasting at you. You imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. How do I begin? So today, for celebrating Captain Picard Day, why fandom has decided to adopt all of these fictional dates to celebrate, I get it. It's kind of fun. Sometimes it goes overboard. May the 4th be with you. Come on, it's always May 25th. Happy LV426 Day, Aliens 426. Okay, well, for Captain Picard Day, Paramount Plus dropped a teaser for the new season of Star Trek Picard. They also dropped a promo image for the series. And what can I say? I mean, I showed this on Fully Articulated, but I just want to say that this is the image that they dropped for Star Trek Picard. The Los Angeles freeway system. Now, it has been reported that some of Star Trek Picard takes place in the 21st century. That there is once again, we're going to go back in time because, lo and behold, some shenanigans are occurring. We don't know why. We don't know what. But the preview dropped today. I just want you to take a look at this image. Now, I understand, I see the new alternate universe. We'll get to that in a minute. Star Trek logo is, you see this in I get it. That Star Trek, the Delta Shield, the chevron, whatever you want to call it, the insignia. Actually, I call it the Enterprise insignia because I don't care what anyone says. That was the fun of Star Trek. Each ship had its own insignia. I know there were exceptions to that rule, but that was only for production issues because things they were too expensive, but I don't care what anyone says. I do believe that they meant whenever they showed you new crew members, they would have a different insignia. So this is actually the insignia of, in fact, the Enterprise, obviously. So this is the poster we get in 2021 to promote a 2022 show. In 1986, we got this poster. The poster for Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, painted by the incomparable Bob Peak. Again, we see a California city, San Francisco, obviously where Starfleet Command will later reside. Then, of course, we see Bob Peak's rendition of all of our characters. We see a blood-red sun setting, and, of course, a Klingon bird of prey over the Golden Gate Bridge. And one of the great taglines or ad lines or copy lines of any movie ever, which was, "How on earth can they save the future?" I don't know who came up with that. Genius. This promises adventure. This says Star Trek to me. This is something that I have this poster. I have this original one sheet. It's 35 years old. Mine's in pretty mint condition. One day I should get it framed. But I always loved this image because Bob Peak, while he painted the poster for the motion picture, they did not use his key art in the domestic theatrical campaign for either Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, or Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. And if you look up the original domestic theatrical campaigns for Star Trek II and Star Trek III, the posters, the key art, this is called key art, they used were terrible. And they finally went back to his artwork for Star Trek 4, 5. No, he didn't do 6. But this is a poster for a Star Trek show. This is, I don't know what this is supposed to be, but already this is tongue-in-cheek. And this image certainly doesn't match the teaser. I don't know what this is selling to me. Is Picard going to be driving the freeways of 21st century Los Angeles? And if so, how exciting could that be? I don't really know yet because I haven't seen it. Now, I hate when people start ripping on things that they haven't seen. But I would say in this case, we have 3 seasons of Discovery and 1 season of Star Trek Picard. And I would dare say the 1 season of Star Trek Picard was, in my mind, let's call it one of my least favorite seasons of science fiction television ever. To say I didn't like it is putting it mildly. However, because it's Star Trek, because it's my lifelong love, favorite franchise, whenever there's something Star Trek coming out that's new, I try and muster up something, I try and get excited about it. But after 4 seasons of what I would dare say is, let's call it, well, some of the worst televised science fiction ever written, I find myself, it's hard for me to get any enthusiasm up for this. And one of the things that I don't understand, I guess, is that when you take things like Q and the Borg, these things were atypical Star Trek. You know, what kept Star Trek going throughout the decades was what I would like to call the meat and potatoes Star Trek. Q episodes, Borg episodes, those were atypical. They were fun, but they're fun because they're surrounded by all of these, when I say meat and potatoes, the meat and potatoes Star Trek episodes where you'd go to a planet, the planet would have some kind of interesting problem that mirrored our own society, our stalwart characters would get involved with that problem and perhaps solve that problem. That's what Star Trek was all about. And then when they would do something like, go to the mirror universe, it wouldn't be something that would happen all the time. These were things that worked as well as they did because we had most of Star Trek to go by first. Picard has been a show of let's have the Borg, let's have Romulan nuns, let's do all of these things. We take all of these Star Trek, let's not call them cliches, let's call them tropes. And that's all they're giving us. What we're not getting from Star Trek anymore is what Star Trek was originally started, what it was founded to be, which is an allegorical show about humanity moving out into the cosmos. And in what we found out there, we would impart to the audience wise pearls, lessons to know. It was allegorical and it was interesting. Star Trek now, for whatever reason, the movies, the shows, it's all tropes. There's no new ground being forged here. They aren't even offering up allegories anymore, which is fundamentally not what Star Trek is. And I just don't understand why this is the direction they continually take Star Trek. It's a weird trope nostalgia trip all the time. Star Trek is a perfect vehicle by which to examine the life of someone like Jean-Luc Picard later in life. What does it mean when someone who led such a life of adventure and mattered so much to the galaxy, what happens when that person is sort of sidelined and marginalized? There could have been a really interesting character study. I'm not saying that I don't want action and adventure, but the action and adventure we're getting is some of the most dumbed down, cliched science fiction concepts that I can possibly imagine. And it's incredibly frustrating to watch a show that was lauded for being as smart as it was, and to watch things that are, let's say, not up to par. And watching the 2nd season of Picard, it's, again, broken timeline, check. Let's bring back Q, check. 7 of 9, she's no longer a Borg anymore. She's, because of the broken timeline, maybe Annika never got assimilated. Check. Let's put everything back to normal. I can't imagine a more uncreative or unexciting way to take the 2nd season of Picard. I really don't understand it. I mean, I guess is that what Star Trek is? It's the same 10 recycled tropes over and over and over again? Or my God, in First Contact we had time travel and we had the Borg, which, by the way, I've been told that's what we have here too. And it's like, really? Really? Of all the great science fiction that's been written in the 20th century and 21st century, you keep revisiting the same wells. We had a feature film about the Borg. We had multiple feature films about time travel, going back into the past. Voyager went back to California. Now Picard's going to go back to California. I mean, I look at this stuff and I think, of all the possibilities, this is the best you can come up with? Where is Star Trek? Where is the trailblazing show that boldly went where no televised science fiction ever went before? Where is it? All we've seen is the same tropes, villains. Oh, there's bad guys. I mean, first of all, there were never really bad guys in Star Trek. As I've said before, there were antagonists, but not really villains. That was kind of the whole point of the show. And yet, we had 3 Star Trek films with basically kind of villains. Oh, there's bad guys. Let's stop the bad guys from blowing shit up. For 3 movies. And then basically that's kind of all we've been getting. Well, there's more bad guys, and let's blow them up. Where is the thoughtful science fiction in modern Star Trek? We haven't had any since 2005, since the last season of Enterprise. I mean, go back, even if you don't like Star Trek Enterprise, watch the 3-parter about Vulcan, starting with The Forge. Watch that. Watch United, the 3-part series about, or I think it was 3 parts, about getting the Federation together. I mean, the Star Trek that we're getting now is so far removed from the ethos of what it is. I don't understand it. And I don't understand why Paramount allows this to continue. I don't understand. I really don't get it. Now, to be fair, there is one thing that gives me pause, that I won't write off Star Trek entirely this time. And I will tune in to Picard just to see. I mean, who am I kidding? I have to at least to bitch about it, right? Well, Terry Matalas, who is the showrunner on this show, from what I understand. I mean, I don't know how beholden he is. Thank God Akiva Goldsman's gone over to fuck up Strange New Worlds. So maybe with Terry Matalas coming in. Now, Terry Matalas was Brandon Braga's assistant working on Enterprise. He was on the production staff of Terra Nova. He worked on Brandon's show Threshold. He was a story editor on Nikita. And he worked on Star Trek Voyager. But he developed 12 Monkeys, which was the TV remake of the movie, which I liked. I thought it was, he created that show. Finally, he was flying on his own. He moved outside. I'd like to believe that he saw what works and what doesn't work. 12 Monkeys certainly was a step in the right direction, and I appreciated the work that he did on it. So I'm hoping that based on that experience, he didn't learn the worst lessons from Brandon Braga, which is, and I like Brandon very much, but Star Trek trope after Star Trek trope after Star Trek trope. I mean, we're getting a second season of Picard, and we're getting time travel in Q. Why? Why not use Q in a different way? Why? I mean, we had Tapestry and we had All Good Things. Basically, It's a Wonderful Life with Picard. Oh, the timeline's broken. You've got to go fix it. I mean, here's the thing. I've got news for you. They're going to fix it. They're going to triumph in the end. Are we going to learn anything other than you don't have enough of a show when you go back in time and change the timeline? We don't even know what the timeline really is in Picard. So before you can go fuck around with the timeline, you have to establish the timeline first. That's why an episode like City on the Edge of Forever, which came at the end of the first season of the original series, works because, oh my God, the Federation doesn't exist, even though the Federation hadn't really been introduced yet. The Earth is gone, at least the Earth as we know it. The Enterprise has disappeared. Real stakes. And when Mirror Mirror played in the second season of the original series, it was great because we had spent enough time with all of these characters and the situations to know flipping it on its head made it fun. But bringing in Q and doing all this stuff now, It's like, really? You can't give us a season of trailblazing, brand new science fiction. Can anyone do that? Can anyone do that? I mean, I know some people can, because you look at the German series Dark. That's some pretty good science fiction. You know, there's been a lot of episodes of Black Mirror, which have been pretty interesting. But why is it Star Trek continually goes to a well that is, well, I'm surprised there is any water left in it? Between the Star Trek novels and the shows that we're watching, do you want to hear something really interesting? Of all of the Star Trek that's been made in the last 12 years, do you know the one I'm interested in the most? Prodigy. Because David Mack was a consultant on it. I know some people that are on the writing staff who I like very much. Julie and Shauna Benson. I think they might bring some really interesting science fiction concepts to the fore, even though it's a show made for Nickelodeon and for kids. The fact that they have a Medusan in a exosuit, they have a character, a race that was created in Peter David's New Frontiers series. I mean, that already, you've won me over. So at least there's something in there that might be new and different. Do I think they should make a show for kids? No, I thought Star Trek, the original series, was for kids. But I look at this stuff and I'm like, I'm supposed to get excited that, what, you're going to hit me with the nostalgia from, you know, how many episodes? And really, when you talk about Q, did people love Encounter Farpoint? No, people love Q. But you know what they loved? They loved Tapestry and All Good Things. So, let's go back and do that again. Really? Really? Is that all Star Trek has become? I mean, Star Trek has become its own tropes. And then it's become this idea of what Star Trek... Well, Star Trek is this inclusive... You know what? Star Trek is also about telling great stories. And look, maybe Terry Metalis, that's somebody that's the one saving grace. I'm like, all right, 12 Monkeys, you've earned my attention and my respect. You have. I will grant you that, sir. And I will tune in and hope what I'm going to see is good. But there was nothing that I was shown in this teaser trailer. Admittedly, it was only a minute long. But the basic gist of it all, the timeline's broken. Again, this is already old hat in the Star Trek universe. It was old hat in Voyager. They went. How many time travel stories did they tell in Voyager? Hell, even on Enterprise, going back in time, fixing the timeline. It has become, between the Borg and Star Trek time travel, are you kidding me? Please tell a good... I mean, it's too late now because it's already done, whatever. But why is it so difficult to come up with a great science fiction story when there is so much great science fiction out there? I mean, why do you have to go back to Star Trek tropes? Star Trek has become a parody of itself. It's as if no one working on Star Trek, it's like, I've read the 10 more fan favorite episodes of Star Trek. I get it. That's what they're going to do. They're going to go back and give you your fan favorites. But the only reason they were fan favorites is because they had all of this other stuff. They had the meat and potatoes Star Trek episodes, hundreds and hundreds of them. And then you get the 1 or 2 or 3 atypical episodes like a Yesterday's Enterprise, which is, again, another trope. Let's have a different timeline. We can admittedly make everyone looks different than the way they really are, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, God. I mean, really? You know, Star Trek was so exciting because of all the different kinds of stories it told when I was a kid. There really weren't Star Trek tropes. They didn't go time travel all the time in the original Star Trek. They did it in a few episodes. Once the Enterprise was thrown back in time, and Tomorrow is Yesterday. Then they used the light speed breakaway factor, and they went back to Earth of the past for Assignment Earth. But that was a different kind of a story. And then, of course, you had City on the Edge of Forever. And then when they did time travel, it was like people escaping into Sarpedon's past before it exploded. Or Beta Niobe, pardon me, not Sarpedon. That's a different history. But it's just, I'm like, really? Again? You're just going to repeat the same thing? Anyway. I looked at this and I found it kind of soul-crushing. And I know I could sit here and rant and I could rave all about it and bitch and moan and complain. But I think we all kind of feel it. You know, we all want something new and unique, and we're hoping that maybe somebody will step in and give us brand new, groundbreaking science fiction in the guise of Star Trek. Like, why is that so difficult? I mean, is it? I would hope it wouldn't be. But apparently it is. And it's very frustrating. And it makes me sad. You know what doesn't make me sad? Larry Wilson's letter. Larry Wilson wrote in today and said, "Hi, Rob. I had a Robservation while watching the Loki debut. Could Marvel be establishing that characters we've become fond of may have a variant that is the same person but the physical appearance is different? It appears we're going to meet a variant or variants of Loki that aren't played by Tom Hiddleston and perhaps not even male. Will that also be happening in Doctor Strange 2, if in fact Peter Parker is going to be played by Holland, Maguire, and Garfield? If this is true, T'Challa could be played by a different actor with having to replicate the version identified with the great Chadwick Boseman. What if Shuri loses her version of T'Challa only to have another T'Challa, more in keeping with the way he's portrayed in the comics, tactical, scientific, and an exceptional fighter, come into this universe? As you may have guessed, I really hope there is some way to keep T'Challa in the Marvel Universe. I know, wishful thinking, but in the words of Jesse Jackson, keep hope alive." I don't know, Larry. I think you could be onto something there. I don't think that's I don't think that's necessarily something out of the realm of possibility. But yeah, I hope they're not going to fix, because once they do that, let's bring Black Widow back, let's bring Steve Rogers back. I hope they don't do that, because I like the fact that we have characters in the Marvel Universe that have moved on. I really do. I think that adds to the tapestry of the universe, and I hope it forces them to bring back characters. I mean, I know in the comic books everybody eventually comes back, so it doesn't bother me. But I kind of like what they're doing. I hope they keep it. I mean, the idea of variants and all that, I don't mind that, and especially in the case of Loki, he's a trickster, so it kind of, the whole idea for me kind of works with his character, but we'll see. I just hope that once they open that, look, Chad Boseman has passed away. There's no way that they can replace Chad Boseman, the actor. And I think that they should have a new Black Panther. Give this opportunity to a new actor, and hopefully the writing staff and the people at Marvel will come up with a new story. And something that will be worthy of what we've known and loved with the Marvel Universe. And that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that they do that. I really do. I'll see where Loki goes. I forgot, again, I'm not used to watching these things, and normally I'd watch it at midnight, but we were watching for Art Center. Elizabeth, for her film class, had to watch Kurosawa's High and Low, Twist My Arm, so we were watching that last night. I totally forgot that Loki debuted, and then I came out to do the Midnighter and didn't see it. But this next letter comes from James Wallace. By the way, I love the first episode of Loki. Our friend James Wallace says, "Hey, Rob, so I was watching Batman 1989, and it's mind-boggling to me how this film seems to get a pass due to nostalgia. To a degree, I understand. There's a part of me that still likes aspects of the film, yet it's a disaster, too. It's a nonsensical 80s music video of a comic book film." I don't disagree. The reason I write this is due to the talk about The Dark Knight Rises the other night. I get the criticisms for that film. However, I'll trade that film any day for half of the superhero films that are getting released now, and people remain silent on the narrative problems with these films. But with regard to Batman, the film is a mess. Last week, I watched Star Trek II for the umpteenth time due to the film turning 39, and the other night I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark due to its 40th anniversary of release. Star Trek II is my favorite Trek film, and Raiders is probably just a favorite film of mine, and revisiting the film the other day showcases that it's close to a perfect film. I think both of them are, actually. These films are rightfully still celebrated, and someone on the Post-Geek Singularity celebrated Batman since it's now 33 years old, and due to Keaton's return as Batman on the Flashpoint set, I figured I would revisit the film. It's amazing how films from the 1980s are still relevant today due to the launch of franchises that still thrive. What I saw tonight invites so many questions. For those that don't know, Sam Hamm's script had a lot more to the narrative than the final film, and over the years he's mentioned in interviews that he wasn't a fan of the final decisions. Tim Burton is good with visuals, but logic and character were definitely not his forte during this period of his filmmaking career. For starters, Vicky Vale is one of the worst characters, just a terrible excuse for a love interest, and a forced damsel in distress. In fact, probably one of the least intelligent damsels in distress that has ever been witnessed on film. As a photographer, she doesn't even know who Bruce Wayne is or what he looks like. Do you know if any of these guys are Bruce Wayne? And what do you do for a living? I mean, Bruce is obviously not a nobody in Gotham City to have a charity ball that's a who's who of the city. She doesn't know who he is, yet has the invitation to the party for Knox ready when he's searching his desk. Also, one night with Wayne and they love each other, or she loves him, barely knows him, or we don't see a scene justifying this love. Alfred opines to Bruce about getting with Vicky and Alfred barely knows her. She's then told by Bruce to meet at the museum. Gets a weird package with a gas mask. People die in the museum due to the Joker's poisonous gas, and it's not really a big deal to her. Then Psycho Joker dances into the place as soon as he hits the table, blowtorching candles. She treats him like they're on a speed date. When he threatens to spray acid at her, she throws water in his face. Water. And he's acting like he's been injured. What does she do? Pats him on the back like, "Are you okay? This man just tried to spray acid on her." She's not running for her life. No, she's patting him on the back. Later, when the Joker shows up at her apartment, she genuinely seems like she cares about him when he informs her about his girlfriend's death. Plus, in this scene, is Bruce psychic? How does he know that the bullet the Joker will fire at him won't hit him in the head or the shoulder or the groin? No, that small caliber, wait a minute, how does he know it'll be a small caliber bullet that will be shot at him? How does he not know one of the Joker's goons won't shoot him with a .45? Also, why doesn't he just escape the apartment? He returns only to get shot. Using a perfume tray as a bulletproof shield. A perfume tray. What's the point of him going back into that room if he's not going to do something instead of playing dead? Plus, why would the Joker leave? He's got Vicky Vale. Why not take her with him? What's the point of this scene except for the pale moonlight line, which would have been used in another scene? The scene is pointless. Plus, why would Vicky Vale go into a church with the Joker? Why not run? Yeah, I know he's pointing a 3-foot barrel gun at her, but he seems to have a crush on her, and she realizes this, so why not a chance to run? Ah, hell, I'm just going to list the problems with this film with regards to logic. Axis chemical scene. Eckhart is just wandering around waiting to get shot. Commissioner Gordon is in a dangerous environment, yet lets all the patrolmen leave alone to get a gun pointed at him. Bruce Wayne and Batman, we have no idea why he does what he does. Sure, we know the character due to the comics, but point out a scene in the film where he makes it clear why he's a vigilante. Why does he want to go after criminals? Of course, later in the film, we find out about his parents, but it's so tacked on that the filmmakers are probably like, ah, shit, we have to show an emotional reason for him to kill the Joker. Speaking of the Batman killing, fanboys went nuts over Zack Snyder's Batman killing, but Keaton's Batman seems to get a pass. I wonder why. The 200th Joker Gotham celebration, where are the cops? They just allow the Joker to come in and kill people. Cops show up at the church, which is funny. When the bell falls and blocks the door, Gordon pushes on the bell a couple of times and says, let's go. Speaking of the cops, Joker distributes the cosmetics that are killing people, and his hideout is Axis chemicals, and the cops don't even try and apprehend him. He's hiding in plain sight. Batman figures it out and blows up the place, but when people are getting killed, cops are like, love that Joker. Batwing over the moon, love the visual, but what's the point? The amount of time it took Batman to do that, he could have been saving lives. Joker gets his men to shoot the crowd out of the streets. The men could have killed the citizens. Is Batman about showing off or saving people from criminals? Fanboys criticize the burning bat symbol on the building in The Dark Knight Rises, but the Batwing over the moon scene gets a pass? The church scene. Joker and Vicky go in, and once on the roof, Joker's men are there already? Plus, she doesn't know Batman's alive, yet she's submitting to Joker? Does she have a weird rapid Stockholm Syndrome crush on him? Plus, if the Joker's men are up there, why does the helicopter arrive minutes later? Also, why does Vicky Vale take the Joker's hand on the side of the ledge? Joker grabbed Batman and Vicky, also a huge problem with this. How can a man in his 50s standing on a ledge be able to grab a man in a batsuit and a woman, flip them over a ledge, and he didn't break his back or fall off the building without a harness? Logic, people. Logic. I just don't get how this film gets a pass. Keaton is serviceable in the role, but we barely see him as the character in the film to really shine, and yet he's still people's favorite Batman. This film is only considered what it is due to nostalgia, and because it was the film that, due to its success, helped to open the floodgates for modern comic book films. Then years later, X-Men really influenced the tide, but tell me, Rob, why on earth does this film get the pass? I don't get it. Fanboys or YouTube critics will rip apart Nolan or Snyder films, but this one is so nonsensical and gets a pass. You know, I think it was 2019. I went and saw Batman in the theater. I saw it, I think it was at the Cinerama Dome. I went and saw Batman in the Dome. And it's not a good movie. Everything you said is absolutely true. And I think it ultimately, the climax of the film is boring. It's a lot of cantered camera shots, and I could rip on Batman all I want, and all you want, and all a lot of people might want. But I'll tell you, while I don't think it's a good movie, I think it's an interesting vision. The way Anton Furst's production design works. As a narrative feature, I don't think it works at all. And it's almost like you're watching a succession of like you're watching the like a Reader's Digest condensed version of the real movie. That's probably 4 or 6 hours long. That's kind of what it felt like to me. There is no real narrative flow. Things happen. We're filling in. It's one movie where we as an audience fill in half the movie and still go with it because it was such a... The only take on film of Batman up to that point was the Adam West series, and it was so different from that. I think people were sort of mesmerized. They were ensorcelled into loving this movie. So I don't think you're wrong. And I think a lot of it does have to do with nostalgia. I mean, that movie came out 32 years ago, which means you might have been 10 years old. If you're 42 now, you were and you saw it when you were 10, it probably had a huge impact on you. And then it was a sell-through tape on the video home video market, so it sold cheap. So everybody bought that tape and watched it a million times. So I think it was ingrained. I think it's one of those movies that, like you said, if you step back and actually, I was surprised because I hadn't seen Batman. For me, I don't find that Tim Burton's Batman has much rewatchability. I love The Dark Knight. And as you pointed out, The Dark Knight Rises, I really like watching that too. As many problems as I have with that movie, I like the characters, I like the scenes. Even though the movie doesn't make a lick of sense, it's got logic problems. I would ask everyone to read or watch the Critical Drinker's analysis of The Dark Knight Rises. I think it's actually pretty damn good. But yeah, I think that well, I don't think Batman is very good, and I think all of the things that you identified are correct. But I'll tell you, I think there's something about the Tim Burton Batman that sort of goes beyond criticism because it was a gateway drug for a lot of people. I think a lot of people, when they look, I don't understand the love for Return of the Jedi. When I saw Return of the Jedi, obviously Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back were hugely important to my life. And to this day, Return of the Jedi is the biggest cinematic disappointment I've ever had. There are people watching this going, wait, what? Burnett, I'm not watching you. Unsubscribe. Unlike. But for me, Star Wars and Empire, taken collectively together, because no one had ever seen anything like that, was building to something I thought would be tremendous. And while I do enjoy the rescue of Han Solo, because it's like a movie unto itself, and I absolutely adore the throne room confrontation between Vader, the Emperor, and the rest, and Luke, the rest of the film is inconsequential. There's hardly any there. And it would have been really interesting if there was a lot more going on, like Leia has her own struggle with the light and dark side, and maybe she would have been seduced or something. I wanted a Lawrence of Arabia or an Apocalypse Now level of film from Return of the Jedi. I wanted something huge and epic, and what we got was sort of small-minded and for children. It's not just the Ewoks, it's the whole attitude of the film. Our characters are walking around completely out of character, especially Han Solo. Hey, it's me. I mean, he felt like he was doing a parody of his own character. So, and yet people love Return of the Jedi. People are incapable, I think, of seeing it for what it really is. I feel the same way about Batman. But that's not to take away. I mean, if you like Batman, you should like Batman. I have a Hot Toys Batmobile from the '89 version. I like the design work. I love my Jack Nicholson Joker. But I do think that the film is very lacking. When you go back and watch it, it's a hard film. It's a hard film. This comes from William La Rochelle. Hi, Rob and the PGS. As the anniversary of Raiders of the Lost Ark is celebrated, or just Raiders, but omitting the Indiana Jones cumbersome extraneous Lucasfilm branding, I think I might be able to dig out the old paperback novelization by Campbell Black. Wondering whether it included a description of the deleted periscope or the young Nazi who can't bring himself to shoot Sala, or some description of just how Indy and Marion got the Ark off the island. That last question I really should have looked up before knocking off my own short story fanfic about it. I actually mentioned Indy recalling having seen King Kong a few years before and having wondered how the Venture got the giant ape safely to the States. I'll do fan fiction only out of compulsion, realizing there isn't much outlet for it. I did once have a supervisor who regularly read Game of Thrones fanfic online. Are you aware of places that more general examples of that can be shared online? Well, I know that there are whole forums and places. I forget. There's actually a place to go, and I don't know what it is. I don't really delve into fan fiction that much, but I do think about the Raiders novelization that had like a multi-page fight between the sword wielder, the scimitar-wielding swordsman and Indy, and in the movie, of course, he just blows him away. So yes, these questions I think have been answered in other places, but I really don't know where people can look for their fan fiction needs. But I do know that those needs are met elsewhere. So yeah, there you go. But that's a good letter. Yeah, you shouldn't write fan fiction. I think it's a good bet when it comes to fan fiction. Just assume anything that you've ever wondered has been either handled in some kind of published official fiction or fan fiction. Somebody's done it. I know that I don't want to be discouraging, but I know that it has. David Atkin writes in and says, "Hi, Rob. I've just watched your video with Scott Mantz. Great discussion, and I love your passion. I went to Tokyo in 2015 on an anime tour with my friend. We went to the Toei Animation Studio, who do One Piece, Dragon Ball Z, and more. It was a great experience, seeing how the different stages of creating episodes, and good to see a lot of it is still hand-drawn using those digital pen mats. And at the end, we could ask questions to the head, and she was the nicest woman and poured a big bag of anime swag on the table, and we could pick anything. We stayed in Shinjuku, which is a great hub to get two other districts. Japan still has a Tower Records, which is amazing to go to as it went bust in England years ago. We found a great place for secondhand Blu-rays and DVDs called Traders, and as you know, Japanese Blu-rays are hideously expensive, but here, because in Japan people take amazing care of their things, the Blu-rays are like new, double wrapped by the staff for extra protection, and half the price or more, so it's a great place to go if you ever go to Japan. Akihabara is an amazing district for anime stuff, and you should spend days looking through the hundreds of stores selling anime, Blu-ray, clothes, and great food. There's a great shop chain of all Japan called Mandrake, which sells secondhand Gundam kits, anime figures, manga, etc., 2 floors for each, but a lot cheaper than new because in Japan, people keep their figures in like-new condition, and a lot of things are still boxed and just have a small dent in the box, which is classed as damaged, but it's normally just a tiny dent. Also, Nakano Broadway is a massive mall in Tokyo with 6 floors full of anime and model train goodness. Oh my God, you're killing me here. We went to a mall called Diver City with the famous life-size Gundam from Gundam Mobile Suit Gundam, since they have built a new one, and the Walking Gundam. All in all, Tokyo in Japan is an amazing place to go. Just make sure you take enough to fund your Gundam and Blu-ray buying. Dude, not just that, die-casts, I couldn't even. If I went to Japan, I'd have to take literally tens of thousands of dollars in disposable income, or I'd feel like an 8-year-old kid who didn't get what he wanted for his birthday. Also, the people are the most friendly and polite people I've ever come across. P.S. I've been collecting Hot Toys for 7 years and just bought the War Machine Age of Ultron Hot Toys, the Loki from Dark World, the Far From Home upgraded suit, and the Iron Spider, and I recently watched your Freddie Mercury unboxing, and my mum came in just as you were showing the stages of erect peens, laugh out loud. I got a strange look, but I explained they're used for art models. Many thanks for all you do, Dave. I think I already read that letter, Dave, but you know what? I liked it anyway, so I was going to read it again. Because I want to go to Japan and take lots and lots of money. But who knows? Maybe I'll get... I mean, I've wanted to go to Japan my whole life. Jordan, a.k.a. the Bearded Toy Man, is in the house. Greetings, Rob. I've been a longtime fan and viewer of your show, but never had the time or guts to write a letter to the Viceroy Verisimilitude. But I just poured myself some liquid courage, a.k.a. Blanton's Bourbon, and I'm sitting down to write you this letter about my personal opinion on Zack Snyder's first phase of DC films, the failure of studio leadership, and why I believe we, as fans, need to be careful according to the idea that $1 billion is what makes a film successful. First off, I want to bring up the argument I see most when discussing Zack Snyder's slate of DC films, that being the fact that they weren't a financial success. I wholeheartedly disagree with this argument for a few reasons. The first one being the fact that this argument is often brought up in comparison with the MCU and its slew of billion-dollar films and critical successes. While I agree that Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice Leagues aren't critical hits, like many of Marvel's films, they weren't financial failures either. I obviously don't know the ins and outs of the industry, box office numbers, or what requirements need to be met for studios to deem a film as a success, but I did once hear you say that for a film to be considered financially profitable, it needs to triple its production budget. Well, now it's almost four times its production budget, but let's say triple, sure. So, in using that template, I want to give a brief rundown of the DCEU films made under Zack's umbrella and their respective earnings. Man of Steel's budget was $220 million with a gross of $668 million. Batman v Superman's budget of $250 million and its worldwide gross of $873 million. Suicide Squad's budget of $175 million and it grossed $746 million. Wonder Woman's budget of $150 million and its gross was $822 million. And sadly, we don't know the numbers of Zack Snyder's Justice League, so I can't include it here. Now, these numbers lead me to my second point, which is the dangers of studio leadership chasing the competition and creating a film universe without the conviction to see it through. While I don't like to compare the two for many reasons, I want to bring up the earnings of the MCU's first phase of films as a way to illustrate my point. Iron Man had a budget of $140 million and it grossed $585 million. The Incredible Hulk had a budget of $150 million with a gross of $264 million. Iron Man 2 had a budget of $200 million with a gross of $623 million. Thor's budget was $150 million and it grossed $449 million. Captain America the First Avenger had a budget of $140 million and grossed $370 million. The Avengers budget was $220 million and it grossed $1.518 billion. So these numbers serve as my rebuttal to the argument that Zack's first phase of DC films were financial failures or disappointments. I think somewhere on the line this narrative became popular to believe and throw in conversations about fans and pundits. But if you ask me, the box office numbers showed steady growth and popularity amongst the fan base. It feels like, in an effort to chase the competition, and maybe because some egotistical power trip, the studio heads at Warner Brothers decided to abandon patience and reason in an effort to appeal to film critics and a portion of the fan base, regardless of the promising numbers the first phase of DC films produced under Zack Snyder's umbrella. This ultimately leads me to my final point, the problem of $1 billion. I often hear the argument that Batman v Superman killed the proverbial Snyderverse because it was a financial failure. But this is almost always based on the fact that it didn't make $1 billion. So my question is always, did it lose money? No. So why then is it a failure? Simply because it didn't make $1 billion? I can't wrap my head around this popular line of reasoning. Should it have made $1 billion because it had both Batman and Superman in it? I think so I understand being disappointed that it didn't, but that also doesn't mean it was a financial failure. It took 5 MCU films with smaller profits than people realized for Marvel to finally crack that $1 billion mark, and the studio didn't give up, course correct for acclaim, or let their universe be derailed by their earnings, which are very similar to the first phase numbers in Zack Snyderverse. So why then were the fans and pundits so quick to tout the $1 billion film as the model for success going forward? I feel like this led to the studio destroying Justice League and turning the current DCEU into a disjointed mess when it comes to a shared universe. I've seen so many articles and watched so many videos where the $1 billion number is brought up as the measuring stick by which superhero films are judged. I think setting the bar for success at $1 billion not only does a disservice to films that do hit that mark, but also to the ones that are building towards that big game team-up film that might have had a $1 billion goal in mind. I guess in closing that I can't come to terms with this thought process. It feels dangerous to me as a fan of superheroes for it to be so widely accepted as the industry watermark. I personally love Zack's DC films and the MCU, and I don't want them to be similar. Variety is the spice of life, as they say, and I welcome fun films like Guardians of the Galaxy while still wanting deeper artistic tales like Batman v Superman. This is, of course, just my 2 cents as a fan that really doesn't know much about how the industry works, but I can always offer my hot takes like the rest of the fans out there. So, Notorious RMB, Viceroy of Verisimilitude, Friend of the Everyman, Duke of Discourse, Seer for Suckers, what do you think? Am I nuts for wishing the Snyderverse wouldn't be held hostage by the strange standards it has been chained to? Or in thinking that the numbers say that the Snyderverse wasn't a financial failure? You obviously know more about these things than I, and I thoroughly respect your opinion on all things, and not just our beloved fandoms. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that, Jordan. If you get around to reading this letter, I thank you, my friend. You and me most definitely park our shuttles in the same shuttle bay, and I wish you all good things. Regards, Jordan, a.k.a. the Bearded Toy Man. P.S. I recently purchased a Post-Geek Singularity t-shirt, and not only does it fit me splendidly, but it makes me smile every time I don it. Well, thank you for that, too. Peace and love, my friend. Peace and love to you. Come for the festival, ya? Well, Jordan, thanks for the wonderful letter. Look, I think your points are well taken, but here's the thing. You have to remember that it has to make 3 times its money. That's to break even. So, and remember, the studios don't get all the money. They don't even get half the money usually that a movie makes at the box office. So, when a movie like Batman v Superman costs the studio $225 million, and you look at how much profit they're actually making, there isn't much. So, Man of Steel. Let me go back to Man of Steel. That's what I was thinking about. $1 billion, which is what they think. See, there's studio expectation, and then there's the reality. When you're at a studio and you're looking at these movies coming together, the thinking was, looking at Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, that you had a hit on your hands. Because the studios don't understand the fan base. They don't understand what people are looking for. They look at Man of Steel and like, well, that movie kicked ass. And they think that they've actually come up with something that people love, that people are going to love. Like, this movie left me breathless. They're not thinking, oh my God, I can't believe that Superman killed Zod. The studio doesn't know that people are going to think that way. All they think of, and look, by any stretch of the imagination, if you didn't know, if you were just thinking about it from movie sense, I think Man of Steel is a really solid science fiction epic film. Now, does it work well as a Superman film? If you're a Superman fan and you think about the entire legacy of Superman, does Man of Steel float your boat? Well, a lot of Superman fans said no, it didn't. But I think when you're making a movie at the studio level, you look at Man of Steel, if you're an executive on that movie, you're like, fuck yeah, this movie is awesome. Because it is kind of awesome. Where it doesn't get awesome is when we start dealing with the actual character of Superman for us as Superman fans. But I think generically, if you're at a studio and you're looking at movies that are getting made and you watch Man of Steel, that movie, in your mind, is a $1 billion film. And I think the studio thinks it's $1 billion. They don't understand how fans come at things. They're like, how can you not like this movie? Well, it's not my Superman. Well, how do you quantify that? Nobody understands that at the studio level. Like, there's like, this movie kicks ass. It works on every level. Who's not going to love this movie? Well, ironically, Superman fans. And so I think ultimately at Warner Brothers, they thought they would have $1 billion grosser means the studio might take home. They spend $225 million. If you could make $100 million profit and make $325 million, that's pretty good business to be in. You know, you're not making 50% profit, but then you've got your operating costs. So you have to remember that even if a movie costs $225 million, just to break even, you know, what is that? What is 225 million times 3? It's close to, well, it's close to, I mean, you're pushing 800 million, and that's a lot of money, and it didn't make that. So it's your economic considerations are, while I understand where you're coming from, there's expectation versus reality, and then there's like, when you make a movie for $225 million, that's a Superman movie, the studio is just taking for granted that it's going to make $1 billion. In this day and age, over the last 20 years, you look at a movie like that, and it probably should. And when you put Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman in a movie together, I think the thought is that, yes, it's going to be, I mean, and the thing is, look, if you watch Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and let's say you're not a comic book fan, you're not steeped in the lore, but watch it for what it is. I mean, it's a pretty compelling movie. It's only when you start really knowing, I mean, they rely on us, the fans, to go back again and again and again and to buy the movies and download them and all this. And it's the fan base. I mean, everyone says, well, the fans are going to show up anyway. We got to get the everyman to come in. Well, I think the everyman did like Batman v Superman, or like Man of Steel. But the everyman goes and sees movies once, or the every person, I should say. People start talking about gender. The every person who goes to see these movies, they see it once and they leave. But movies are brought over the top by people that go back, repeat business, and that's what you want. And they were alienating the fan base with some of the fan base, and people are like, the studios are like, why are they why don't people love our movie? It's beautifully made. It looks great. You got Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. I mean, yes, but the tone of your movie is not exactly what we were looking for. Well, I mean, studio executives will probably go crazy contemplating that question. Like, what do you mean? So there's a number of different factors. So, yeah, it's tough. I think that it's it's a hard lesson to learn, but there's also expectation that's in there, and I think that's something we can't really forget about, the expectations people have about movies as opposed to the reality of the movies. So, yeah. See, I have such a monstrous backlog of letters, but unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of time. So I'm going to jump in back to what you were saying. Now, Royce Freeman had sent me a few super chats that I didn't get to in the last show because I thought he wanted me to seem more appropriate for this show. And Royce Freeman first says, Sharon Stone is mad that the new 4K edit of Basic Instinct has extra nudity not in the original. Can material she did be restored without her permission? Well, first of all, it doesn't. Sharon Stone reportedly said that the new version of Basic Instinct, the 4K restoration, has like XXX footage that wasn't in the original. This is untrue. She didn't quite, obviously, she probably wasn't aware of it because why should she be? There are two different versions of Basic Instinct. There's the theatrical version, and then there's the unrated version that doesn't have a lot more sex in it, but has a lot more violence, especially when Johnny Boz gets a ice pick to his face. You see a lot more of Rob Bottin's work in the beginning of the movie. So there isn't a lot more nudity, but theoretically, an actor, unless they have it in their contract, because you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. If an actor doesn't have something in their contract that says they have approval, the filmmakers can do whatever they want. And the Basic Instinct that was released, by the way, mine came today. I haven't watched it yet, though, but I'm very excited because you know that I have very much not liked the way Basic Instinct looked on physical media. It's been released twice, and I didn't think it looked great. So I'm really hoping this is a massive improvement. So that's good. Royce also goes on to say, subsequently, I'm working on a director's cut of a film I made, and I'm adding lots of new dialogue scenes back in. Do I have to let the actors know? No. You're under no obligation to do that. You can put as much dialogue in as you want to. There's no reason why you can't. It's your film. You shot it. It's yours. Royce goes on to say, can an actor ask for a material from older to be changed or removed, or the entire film pulled from release if the material doesn't represent their values? Absolutely not. Unless there's some kind of morals clause in your contract, they can't do that. As a matter of fact, you can't. They knew, it's the old airplane line. They bought their tickets. They knew what they were getting into. I say, let them crash. No, they made the movie. You can't sit there. This material doesn't represent my values. Well, then you shouldn't have been in it. You read the script, right? You read the script. You're going to come after me on morals clauses now? I mean, come on, man. You can't. You can't. That's not the way. That isn't the way the world works. Just so you know. It really isn't. So it doesn't work that way. Now let's see. Let's go back and see who's here and what's here and how's here. Well, that's not going to work now, is it? For whatever reason, that's the wrong place. I'm not in the right place. I wanted to go here, where James Taylor was, because he sees fire and he sees range. Can you imagine being James Taylor and how many times you'd have to listen to that in your entire life? James Taylor says, hey, Rob, I hope all is well. I haven't been around recently because I wanted to focus on exams, so fingers crossed that goes well. I did like Picard, and this trailer did get me excited for what's to come. I know you didn't like it, but I respect your opinion. Well, I respect yours, too. I'm glad it got you excited. I mean, the funny thing is Q is a very interesting character, but it doesn't look like they're doing something necessarily interesting with him. But, I'll wait and see. I think Terry Metalis, okay, Terry, take it away, Terry. You're either gonna surprise me and thrill me, not that you care, but if you look, I've got my walls up. I'm gonna go into Picard. I will watch, but I'm like, bruh, change my mind. What I saw, I'm like I said, could you do something more interesting? I don't know. Could you? Jeff Yerke is here. Jeff Yerke and the lovely Mrs. Yerke. Jeff Yerke says, hi, Rob. Greetings and felicitations for the record. we are officially finished with New Trek. It's the worst science fiction ever. I would agree with that. It can go fuck itself. Don't mince words, Jeff. What do you really think? In other news, I continue to get better every day. Our love to all. Live long and prosper. The Yerk Man. Well, I would tend to agree with you. I think modern Star Trek since 2009 has been completely creatively bankrupt, made by people that don't care about the franchise, that took it all. It was all a job. It was all a job. It was a business decision made by a lot of people, and I call it the Star Trek hostage crisis, and it's been happening since 2009. Hey, it seemed like good business, right? Let's get in on this. Can you imagine how much better business it would have been if you had people that were passionate about the franchise and who brought some really interesting creative ideas to Star Trek rather than rehash literally everything? Oh, let's make new Star Trek. Okay, let's rehash Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. Okay, we'll do that. Oh, wait, let's rehash Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Oh, okay. And we don't know what to do, so let's rehash our rehashes and give another generic villain and do something there. Okay, and let's go back and make Star Trek Discovery that's, set in the era before Kirk. And, let's bring Captain Pike, the star of the failed first Star Trek pilot. Yeah, but everybody loves Captain Pike. Okay, fine. Where's the fucking original Star Trek? Where is it? Prodigy. It's the only one I'm like, and it's probably going to not be good, but I respect the people that are on it. At least it's new. At least it's different. We shall see. Checkmate in 9 moves sends in a tip and says, "Hey Rob, I just thought I'd share that I finished reading Animal Farm for the first time. What a great book. I know I'm late to the party, but the allegory was so perfect. I honestly want to read it again. What are your thoughts on the book? 4 legs good, 2 legs bad." I really loved Animal Farm. I didn't know when I first read it that it was an allegory, but it's a fantastic book. There is an animated film as well that was made a while ago, but I love the book. Well, I thought somebody was remaking it. I would love to see like a Babe-esque retelling of Animal Farm. I think that'd be great. I think it'd be great. But yeah, I love the book. It's terrific. Twin Flicks sends in a tip and says, "The multiverse works great for the MCU or DC, but it doesn't mean it'll work for shows or movies like Star Trek or Star Wars. Producers need to stop copying what works for Marvel and use your own creativity." Look, I agree with you, Twin Flicks. As I've always said on the show, nobody ever got rich in Hollywood following a trend. And it's unfortunate that that's where we're at right now. Yeah. Mercer Create sends in, makes a really good point. Old tropes work on the Orville because of the new characters. I totally agree. Because it's all new to them. So yeah, new subscribers, Jake Householder, Michael Davis. Thank you for that. Thanks for subscribing. Well, It's Only Me, Craig Bales, Julius Smith, all subscribed. Thank you. Lieutenant Commander Salinga sends in a tip and says, "Unfortunately, I don't get my Star Trek fix anymore by watching Modern Trek. I get it sometimes with other movies, and the surprise always makes me happy when it happens. Recently, The Martian, Hunter Killer, and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes." Ooh, that's a pretty interesting list, Lieutenant Commander Salinga. I'd give that to you. Look, I think The Martian especially the extended version, is one of the most Star Trek movies ever. I mean, hell, you could tell basically that same story, jigger the scenario a little bit, or rejigger it, and it could have been a great Star Trek story. It is Star Trek. It's great. Love it. Dallas Lemon says that Picard Season 3 will be a new original story arc where Picard helps Worf regain his family honor. You know, something new. Yeah. So annoying. The Nerdporial Lifeform sent in a super chat and says, "Hey Rob, I noticed you're wearing a Wayland Yutani shirt. I just did a Nerdporial cut of the original Alien trailer and did a review. Great stuff." Yeah, by the way, one of the great trailers of all time. Lieutenant Commander Salinga, this is a two-parter, but it doesn't say two-parter, so let me start again. He sent in 2 different tips. Lieutenant Commander Salinga says, "Unfortunately, I don't get my Star Trek fix anymore by watching Modern Trek. I get it sometimes with other movies, and the surprise always makes me happy when it happens. Recently, The Martian, Hunter Killer, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, but most consistently, the storytelling of the Pixar movies remind me of what Trek once was. Stories for all ages, showing compelling characters working together to solve a problem, making the effort to do the right thing, not to be cynical, and to be empathetic. Ooh, you know what? That's really interesting. I've never heard somebody say that about equate Star Trek to Pixar, but I think you're damn right about that. I mean, what are Pixar movies usually about? But about people coming together to solve a problem or learn something, it's true. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's a very apt comparison. And then Lieutenant Commander Slinga goes on to say, the current state of Trek does not actually make me mad or angry. It just makes me sad. On a meta level, Trek gave people hope, not only because of its content, but because Hollywood created the show with such integrity and the spirit to dream big. Couldn't have said it better myself. I totally agree. Yeah. Sends in it was probably a super chat diamond or something else, but thank you. Lieutenant Commander Slinga goes on to say, like MLK's I Have a Dream speech was inspirational because it described a fictional world without racism. Star Trek was the I Have a Dream for all people all over the world. You know what? That's a great... It really was. I completely agree with you. Alexander Wilson's back. I haven't heard from Alexander in a while. Alexander Wilson says, your midnight shows are kryptonite for people on the East Coast. For me, the most disappointing cinematic experience was The Matrix Reloaded. Oh. It was the first time I heard the crowd groan after the movie was over. Revolution's box office was terrible. Yeah. There's a lot in The Matrix Reloaded that I like, though. But you're right. Disappointing. Richard says, we're in a very politically charged time. Jon Stewart just humorized the lab... Oh, you said humorized the lab leak on primetime TV. Aren't these the kind of times Star Trek is made for? By God, yes. And I'll tell you something. Star Trek has embraced a dystopian cynicism that I think they think is cool, but it's not. You know what would be cool? To try and make a real Star Trek show in this day and date, in this climate, and what we've got going here. I don't know if they can. I don't know if they know what makes Star Trek. I know what they think makes Star Trek. Time travel and Q and the Borg. And we're going to get all three. Broken timelines. Wow. How creative is that? You know what to me that is? Star Trek, again, has become gimmicky tropes. That's it. I mean, my God. Time travel? Really? 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 You'd think after Voyager there wouldn't be any more Star Trek time travel stories, but you'd be wrong. I mean, gosh, the mirror universe... Star Trek is so creatively bankrupt. It's sad to see. Sad to see, but I'm telling you. Of all the new Star Trek, I mean, I watch it, of course. Prodigy it's the only show that at least has something new going on, even though it looks like Guardians of the Star Trek universe, but that's okay. Hey, there's a Medusan in it. There's a character from there's a character is a race from one of Peter David's Star Trek novels. So you already had me at hello. So I'm already more interested. Richard says, I think even Brandon Braga's lieutenant most likely doesn't see anything worth redeemable or good in our Star Trek protagonists or the universe at large. Is there anyone in Hollywood that would get hired? It's the same with Doctor Who. Look, I think that you can. I think Star Trek needs an entirely different approach. I think it needs an auteur, producer, director, or showrunner. It needs a strong showrunner. It needs an Aaron Sorkin. Star Trek needs... I know, if you don't like West Wing, fine. Okay, you don't like... I get it. But someone along those lines. Where's the Star Trek Norman fucking Lear? Where's that? People are like, what, you want to turn it into a comedy? No, I want to turn it into something where you have a genius creator who's behind it all that's like... You know what? I'll tell you what. We're not going to do for our first 3 seasons, no time travel, no Borg, no Q. We're going to forge our own path and create our own mythology with our own show, which is actually what they did with Next Generation. You didn't see Sarek show up until the 3rd season. You had Admiral McCoy in the beginning. They don't even call him McCoy. That was kind of a nice handing off the torch, but they tried to do their own thing. You know, and they didn't bring back every single, let's revisit this, let's revisit that. Star Trek should blaze its own trail, create its own new mythology. and well, if it has good writing instead of horrible, awful, half-baked science fiction concepts like the Burn. Wade Poitras, Poitras says, oh man, I saw the new Picard trailer and had to touch base with you. I love Q and I'm hopeful that it'll be good. Well, Wade, you know what? Maybe it'll be good, but I love Q too, but it's like, give me a fucking break. I mean, unless Q's first act isn't like, what is this robot body, Picard, and brings him back to life, like, why would Q care? I want to know, my biggest question in this whole show is Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard, he's dead. The creature that exists now is a facsimile of Picard. It's not really Picard. Picard died. So why would Q care? If they answer that question, maybe they'll I won't be so, persnickety. But yeah, man, not good stuff. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kind souls, gentle beings across the 28 known galaxies, I'm going to bring this episode of Robservations, episode number 707, the show about something. I'm going to bring this show to a conclusion. I want to thank everybody for supporting this channel via super chats and tips. Thank you so much. I want to thank my moderating staff, all of them. I don't know who's here, but I would assume that I can't. Justin Toner's here. The Richard is here. Simon Gilmore is here. Twin Flicks is here. The Richard, I already said that. Louise X Sparrow and all of you great people. I think that's everybody. Did I get everybody? Did send a diamond, so thank you for that. And thank you all for being moderators on this show. Star Trek. It gives me no pleasure not to like Star Trek. I don't like ranting and raving. I just want it to be good. I want to be excited about Star Trek. I used to be excited about everything. I was even excited... Wait a minute. I want to show you guys something. Just so you know, I don't always have... I don't have rose-colored glasses on about Star Trek. Let me show you a poster. I don't know if you've seen this poster before, but I've got to find it now. Here it is. I found it. When Star Trek V was coming out, they had a very particular ad campaign for it. And to this day, I think that even more so than Picard, this might be, I understand what they're going for. I do. And I even had this poster hanging on my wall, but I hated it. So just so you think that I only bitch and moan about modern Star Trek, this is the teaser poster that they had. I kid you not, this is the actual poster for Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Now, whatever you say about the movie, here's what Paramount put in movie theaters in the summer of 1989 to promote Star Trek V. Why are they putting seat belts in theaters this summer? This is the actual Star Trek V, The Final Frontier teaser poster, and that's clearly like a plastic model of the Enterprise somebody slapped together and then put... That is the actual theatrical release poster. I get where they're going, but wasn't the joke... I guess they're making a joke about why aren't there seatbelts on the Enterprise? I mean, even though I know Star Trek the Motion Picture, what am I supposed to infer from this? That the Enterprise goes too fast? Is that what who came up with this idea? What brain trust thought, oh yeah, this is how we're going to get people excited about the next Star Trek movie? Probably, whoever came up with this poster, I'm sure their kids probably came up with this poster. Wow, because this poster screams Star Trek. Look, how ironic. A cartoon rendering of Los Angeles. Oh yeah. As opposed to say, hey, and look what Star Trek went from. It went from this to this. Well, to 30, what is this, 2022? So 33 years later, it goes to this. I don't know, man. I don't know. I wonder what happened to this. And on that note, I would say to you, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say to everyone, have a better day. I'll try to, because I won't think about Star Trek.